Hi, I'm John Beecham and welcome to another installment of Holistic Podcasts. Coming up in this episode, I speak to Róża Szafranek, founder and CEO at HR Hints as well as Culture Ivy, who is now shaking up how companies treat their employees and how a generational shift in the workplace has also meant that managers going all the way up to the C-suite have had to find new ways to engage their employees. I spoke to Róża at the first edition of Holistic Talk at Cavatina Hall in Bielsko-Biała back in February 2024. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, absolutely. My name is Róża, and I'm leading two organizations right now. We are having HR Hints as a service company, and it's B2B organization, being external HR team for small, medium businesses, for startups, and also for big corporations that are having like M&As, so mergers, acquisitions of smaller companies.
Okay.
So every place where organizational cultures matters when it comes to people relations, communication, conflicts, and all that stuff, when business see that it is important enough to invest in people. Because so far we were having these two elements. So we were having product and service and sales on the other side. And now we see that there's a triangle. And without people, you are not able to do anything, especially currently in crisis, when we see that mid-level management is burned out. A lot of people are leaving the job, just going nowhere, just having a break, or just, all that mechanisms, all that situation with quiet quitting, Monday bare minimum, and etc. So we see that people are really tired, and we are also having wars around us. Inflation is huge, and there's like no safety times anymore on one hand, and on the other hand, business is really pushing to make better results, and that's quite problematic.
And it's striking that balance, right?
Absolutely.
So, before we go any further, it's super what you said as an introduction. And I would like to basically take a step back before we get back to what you are saying. What is the root problem of big corporations at the moment in terms of HR, in terms of people? You were saying middle management is burnt out. Isn't that just a reflection of the distance which the C-suite takes with the rest of the company? Again, I'm thinking, okay, so we're recording this in Poland. I kind of get the idea that, well, big companies, whether it be in Poland actually or anywhere else, I kind of get a feel that when we think of, when we imagine a big company, a big corporation, I always feel that there's a massive disconnect between the people who are in the C-suite and everyone else. But essentially it is the C-suite who should be taking care of everyone, right? So what are the problems we are now currently facing?
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, it is very common that we don't understand every level in organization. So we don't see the perspective of C-level, and we don't want to see, because we are really interested as employees. We are really interested in taking care of our tasks and of our departments or things we are like to do.
And our well-being, right?
Yeah. And about also our private things. But the generation thing and the well-being thing is the different aspect. So we'll be back with it. But just to focus on the most common problems, this is the problem with scaling the good management. So every time when we see that we need to implement some HR practices or make a usage of our psychological knowledge or how people work, how people operate in organization, we see that manager, leader didn't do the work. So situation when we are having 100 people per every HR business partner or people and culture partner, it is not possible to manage it well, just to discuss the problem with everyone, just to make sure that everyone is okay, etc. So we need to scale it through the leaders. We need to scale it through the managers. But the problem is that managers are very often not interested in taking care of it. So they say, I'm the merit person. I'm just dedicated to, I don't know, technical things or law things or compliance or whatever they do. But they don't care about people aspect because they think that it's like too soft. And we say like, I'm like the concrete merit person. I'm not, the psychologist. I'm not into fruity Wednesdays. I'm not going to do that. And there's a problem with thinking because there's no opposition between people things and business. And this, hard opposition and false opposition that is not true basically. But that type of thinking that merit things are like, we can count it, we can have numbers for it, and we are like really merit mature people.
Merit, yeah.
Yeah. And we are like, we think in a concrete way. And on the other hand, we are having soft people, psychologists, taking care of, etc. And it's not the opposition like that, in fact, because if someone doesn't have empathy, they shouldn't be the leader. So that's the basic thing. And without scaling the good leadership and without giving tools, without giving practices, without telling leaders how to do that in practice, when they have 5 people in a team, 8 people in a team, we are not able to scale good organization practice.
Isn't that just a generational thing, though? I kind of get the impression that you were saying, for instance, that, leadership should also be soft and should also be looking at empathy, and that, that managers now are saying that, like, this is a load of rubbish. And I can actually see, people 50, 60 years ago saying that, and I can still see people saying that now. I mean, and it's only with, let's say, the generational shift with these consequent generations coming in the workplace. First, now, I mean, we have millennials and now we're going to have Gen Z coming into the workplace, right? They have completely different expectations, yeah?
Yeah.
Are we even ready to start, bringing empathy into the workplace? You want to make business. You want to get the transactions done. You shouldn't really care about what the other side thinks, right? Or even what your own people think. You just want to get the job done, yeah? So what's the problem here?
Yeah. The problem is that you are not able to win in a business if you don't have psychological knowledge. So at the very high level of negotiations, for example, or having the arguments, or like using power or using status for getting deals done, it is like the must-have to know. When we see at C-levels practices or heads or managers practices, half of their time when they are preparing for negotiations is communication stuff. So you are able to do easy, basic things with no empathy and with no people knowledge, but you cannot go farther. So this is the basic thing to not only to lead, but also to win in a business. So when we see, because we are having quite a big scale in HR Hands, and we are having like between 30 and 40 companies every month. And so far we've supported more than 120 companies so far in North US and in Europe. And what we see that the pattern is that if you are not able to understand how people operate when it comes to conflicts, when it comes to relations, stress, and how they think when it comes to generations, you are not able to be a good leader, and your results in business are worse. So if you are not building the diverse teams, it's like 50% effectiveness less. If you are not able to communicate clearly, so you don't give goals, no matter if you are using KPIs, OKRs, or SMART, but if you are not clearly communicating what's expected, your teams are underperforming in less than 2 quarters because people are not able to work in chaos. And very often we think like, okay, chaos is creative. Like, oh yeah.
To a certain moment, to a certain point.
Absolutely. And it's so startup-ish. It's so cool. Like, don't build any rules. Don't build any documents. We need to do so. Because if people don't get the rules and they don't know the expectations from them, they are not able to
get anything done.
Yeah. And tidy
right?
Tidy up the calendar, tidy up the day. So they are underperformers automatically. And they are stop delivering. And the problem is that the younger generation, so we are having now Gen Z in the market already, and future, like next 5-10 years, we'll be also having Generation Alpha. And these younger generations are not thinking in the way that having things, so like getting things, like earning money is the main goal. Because for us, for example, I'm the millennial, and we were pretty similar to our fathers and mothers.
Yeah,
so,
right,
like,
exactly.
Boomers, so saying like, okay, work hard, 15 hours a day, that's fine. If you are winning, if you want to be someone, if you really want to get
Put the
things,
hours in, yeah.
just you need to spend some time.
Yeah.
And people say, like, right now, very often there is a problem and there is a conflict between millennials and Gen Z, because millennials don't understand why Gen Z doesn't want to work. And Gen Z said, like, okay, but what for? Like, I don't need this money. And I don't want to be rich because it's not my goal. I prefer to go with my friends for breakfast and start working at 1 a.m. And at 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Sorry.
Well, 1 a.m. as well, I suppose.
1 a.m. That's also possible.
Also makes the point, yeah.
Absolutely. And like, millennials are getting crazy because they say, like, oh my God, like, I would die for your job. I would kill for your job like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And so, like, I'm not doing it. If I don't earn enough money, I can live with 10 other people in a squad or in a big apartment, or I can go work in a restaurant. And it's like, millennial thinks like, okay, but you finished studies, you are having degree to work in a restaurant.
I mean, us as millennials, we want stuff, whereas I kind of get the impression that with Gen Z, they're more about the experience,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah, they're not about, let's say, acquiring capital.
Absolutely.
Well, they are acquiring capital, but they're acquiring mental capital, yeah. Or
exactly.
even like, with that experience. So, coming back to what you were saying, how do we get more empathy and a kind of greater knowledge or a greater understanding of whom we have to work with into the workplace? I mean, like, who is in charge or who should be in charge of doing something like that? Is it, Pani Basha in the HR department that does things like this? Or should it really come from the top down, that it should be like something which comes down from the C-suite?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely the second thing. So if leaders are not in charge of delivering people aspects, it won't work. So the situation when, for example, we count rotation and we charge HR people for that is like nonsense, because HR is able to give some tools, is able to show how it should be done, how these mechanisms are working, but is not able to deliver that, because people will not stay in an organization to work with Pani Basia from HR. So they are working with and for the leader. So that's the basic thing. But to have it done and to tidy it up, we need to use these 4 aspects. So we are having values in organization. So we are having the type of pyramid. And on the baseline, we are having values. On top of values, we are having practices and behaviors. And that's super important, because very often when we are having values in organization, it means nothing. So it's just written on a wall and we say like, okay, openness is our value.
Yeah, it's something that the C-suite came up with during like having a beer one evening.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
so,
that's kind of when I think it
comes.
comes.
Let's find 5 cool names and put them on a wall. Okay, but what does it mean?
Yeah.
How it impacts people. Like, so defining practices in organization. So how exactly it works. Am I in charge of doing reporting every week? What am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have my quarter goals? Do I have my monthly goals? So like having it written down and clearly said, like what exactly we are doing to deliver these values.
Mm-hmm.
If we are open, we are having openness, for example, as a value. What kind of practices we have? Does it mean that I'm the CEO, so I'm sharing what I'm doing every week? Does it mean that everyone can say like, okay, your idea is stupid because we are open and we are like very direct in communication? What exactly does it mean? And it's the same with behaviors. So practices are for organizations and behaviors are for people. So if we are, let's stay with this openness example. If we are having openness and as a value, are we okay with shouting at each other if someone is wrong? If I'm having higher status, if I'm someone's manager, am I able to say like, oh, it's like bullshit. Or like, am I okay to raise my voice, for example? Is it okay or not? Is it like a do or don't? So like that type of guidance, just to be clear what we expect and what we say it's forbidden.
Following up on that, looking at your book, you mentioned something called a culture deck, right? And this is kind of what you were saying now, kind of almost kind of gets onto that, yeah? Because in order for these things to work, you have to have the right kind of atmosphere, and people have to know what the general limits are, what they can, what they cannot do. But also there has to be a creation of some sort of work culture, work atmosphere, right? Looking at this idea of a culture deck and, let's say, the people and culture person, as you call it, how important is that for a company to succeed? When we usually think, again, I'm coming back to Pani Basha from HR, yeah? There's usually like one person in what we call in Polish kadry, yeah? Like, so there's one person in HR who basically like, she's in charge. If there's any problem, you go to her. You don't even go to C-suite or anything like that, but you usually just go to HR and take out your beef with that. So look at this is kind of a new model, right? If you look at, like, let's say the idea of a working culture, it's inclusion, right? That everyone feels part of the company. I mean, what kind of problems could that actually generate? Yeah, it sounds almost utopian, whereas we all know that like business is very rarely. Well, utopian. It's anything but, right?
Yeah, but luckily it's really changing in last years, because business understood, and really like the most conservative investors and most conservative companies buying others. So they are really counting money every month, and they really know where from revenue is coming. They see that they are losing money on bad organizational cultures. So defining organizational culture and saying what's okay, what's not, is helping not only with effectiveness. So saving the time. And saving the time is saving the money. So having, for example, tidied up the calendars, it's like the basic thing, but still, like saying, okay, are we organized weekly or monthly? Are we reporting weekly what we do or not? Like, what exactly manager can expect from me? So that type of clarity saves a lot of time, and also stops all the gossips and all the discussions like, I'm not sure what he or she is expecting from me. He's so weird. I don't understand her, and all that stuff. Because if something is written, if something is clear when it comes to expectations and goals, it's much easier to execute. And it's also more fair, because on one hand, we are having that hard business that is really countable and we need to do that. And on the other hand, we are having also people who are really expecting to be treated as mature people, because they are mature. So like treating them in a fair way, saying like, this is my expectation. Are you okay to meet it? If not, like, we are having a month or two just to stop working together. And all that companies, when we are not able to fire someone because everyone knows that someone is not doing anything from 2 years, but we are not sure because we don't measure effects. We don't have any rhythm. We don't report anything. So it's not about corporational counting every hour, but it's saying like, not about input, so what are you doing all day, but it's about outcome. So what are the effects of your work? So, not micromanaging, not staying behind someone's back and saying like, okay, what exactly you are writing here?
But that's just simple task setting and deadlines, yeah?
Absolutely. You know how many leaders are really doing it in Poland?
Really?
Up to 15%.
As little as that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, and even if they are having these goals written, they are like dead. So we are having something, but don't care.
Okay, so how do you implement that kind of change in a country which seems to be maybe not ready for it?
Well, I think so. Like when we are having the comparison with UK, London especially, and Chicago.
Yeah, but that's another
in the US.
world, right? I mean, come on.
It is. But when it comes to the Polish people, and it's quite similar with Jewish people, they are like pretty direct in communication.
Yeah.
And that's quite nice about changing organizational culture, because we are like very sensitive to bullshit, and we really see when something written on the wall is not working.
Yeah.
And very often when we are having the research, it's like up to 80% of people are declaring that they would change the company if the organizational culture was non-toxic and better than current, even if they can lose money up to 10%. So they can get less money for better organizational culture.
Working in a better workplace, yeah.
Absolutely. So it pays off to the business, especially right now when we are having a lot of people on the market on one hand, but when we see at the recruitment cycles, they are like pretty longer. Like it's even up to 2 times longer. So the recruitment takes more time because we are very picky and organizations are not able to hire. So they cannot afford to have high rotation. And if you are having better organizational culture, your rotation will increase because people will not stay with you if they see that other companies are organized better.
How hard is it for you as someone who helps companies change, but how hard is it for you to win someone over or convince them that investing in the work culture and the organizational culture of a company is actually a good thing? I have a feeling, and I kind of get the impression that in Poland, like companies want to basically get stuff done for cheap without looking at anything else that goes with it, right?
And it's not only Polish.
And okay, but like I've been here for 20 years, so that's like that's what I have been seeing in both the public and private sectors. Actually, more so in the public sector, but we won't go there now. I mean, it's a cultural thing, yeah. Poles are direct; they do tend to kind of like filter out the bullshit pretty well. But when it comes to actually making a change, or let's say grouping up in order to, let's say, force change, I get the impression that Poles generally don't really like to team up and help each other out. They're working on a much more kind of atomistic behavior than let's say, a collective, let's say, you know, or help working on a collective cause, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. We even have that phrase in Poland. Zmieniać to my, a nie nas.
Exactly.
So, you know, we are super happy to have impact on someone, but we are not able to take the feedback and change ourselves,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. When it comes to we call that organizations lean and mean. Like American people are much more like that. So they won't spend any money to something that is like not very strict to the business, especially the smaller organizations, small medium businesses.
Yeah, they don't have the budgets for it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they really need to see that this is effective from the business side. So what we show, the first thing is the upgrade of the leader's quality, let's say. So the level of leadership, understanding, and the quality, in fact, impacts their peaceful and mindset. Like, I'm able, as an owner, as a CEO, I'm able to be sure that five of my leaders or 7 leaders I have in organization, they are able to manage people in the way that they will stay in organization and they will deliver. So the main thing is the effectiveness of leaders. The second thing is saving time, because there is a huge ineffectiveness when it comes to organization meeting, when it comes to delivery, when it comes to giving goals. So all that stuff regarding operational things. So organizing work when it comes to, inviting 25 people to the meeting, that can be email.
Yeah.
All that stuff regarding discussing one super unimportant thing for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because
but we've all been there though, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember having to go into meetings in an office, like in a physical office, just to be at the meeting when it could have been an email.
Yeah.
And I think I haven't heard anyone that has said, actually, it was really good that we went to the office. But and we all had a meeting, and that it wasn't just an email, right? But like, I just kind of get the impression that it's just basically managers just wanting to show their position or their status, right? As
Absolutely.
managers, that they can, so they will, and then without actually thinking about the people who are working for them. Right?
Absolutely. And it's a lot about ego games. It's a lot about status games, showing the position and all that stuff. So we are just counting it. We are counting, for example, like example from the last week, we've counted how much does it cost weekly that managers are late because they are doing it in a status way. So they are late just to show that
they can be.
They can be. And they're having like 25 managers in the organization, and 5 of them are always late, including CEO. And we've just counted how much does it cost. And when people see the numbers and see like...
And how much does it cost?
It was like one monthly salary of the manager.
Oh,
so
wow.
25K.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
Like in the long term, right? Well, actually in the short term, and of course if you multiply that,
you can
over the
have
years,
another leader for that.
Yeah.
You can hire additional person, super experienced. So it's like, we are just giving numbers and we are showing effectiveness. We are showing leaders growth. And it's not like, soft thing, growth. It's like you can stay in the position when you are, or you can grow as an organization. You can hire your revenue. And so that's other argument. And other group of argument are M&A arguments. So mergers, acquisition, changes, because if you are buying the smaller company, or there is an acquisition, there is a merge, there is a organizational change, leaders see that if they don't secure organizational culture and rules, people will do nothing. I was selling one company in the past to the FedEx Corporation, and we were a pretty small organization, like having up to 200 people in US and in Krakow, and it was FedEx Corporation, so huge organization. And how much time and how much money, how much potential FedEx lost because of the fact that we were spending a lot of time on discussions, not setting up the rules, not setting up what are exactly our goals, what are the deadlines.
Plan, right? Yeah.
Action plans, yeah. So that's the thing we show, because of course, if you are buying the company, you can give earnout, so you can keep people for a year or 2 years, giving them money, but you are not giving earnout to everyone. You are just keeping leaders, the main important as people, but the rest of the people are very often quitting, or they quiet quitting, so they work like bare minimum, or officially quitting.
Yeah.
So you are losing the resource, you are losing the option to deliver work that you paid for. And now even investment environment really sees that benefit, that it really pays off. Our results when we are counting the effectiveness are up to 100.5. So we are able to show how much money exactly and time they are saving. And that's the final argument.
And of course, exactly. You just need to show how much stuff costs. Yeah. So, Róża, to end with, and it's been great talking to you about this subject.
Likewise, absolutely.
I wanted to ask you. I also happen to be chairman, prezes of a small spółka ZOO, so a limited company based in Warsaw. There are only 3 of us. We're all in the zarząd, so we're all on the board. That's just how it works, right? We're a small company. What is the first thing that I should do to, let's say, make steps to, let's say, create a better working culture, and also to create an atmosphere where we all have an idea, or we all have a feeling that we are all involved and that we want the business to succeed? And what can I do about it? How do I begin? And of course, it's a double-edged sword, yeah, because I'm kind of asking from a personal, because I'd love to get your kind of tips and tricks on that. On the other side, there are plenty of companies like mine which have come to a moment that we are all working super hard. We're not earning enough money to hire another person, but we need to hire another person in order for the company to grow.
Because we work too hard.
Exactly. So what happens? What should I do in this kind of situation?
3 things, 3 steps. The first thing are the goals. I love the quarterly measured goals. And no matter if you are using OKRs or KPIs or SMART, I love SMARTs because OKRs are usually too complicated and it takes too much time to define them. So just saying who exactly, if there is 3 of you, who exactly is responsible for what?
Yeah.
Very often at the very early stage of the company, especially, I guess that if you started a company with some guys, you are friends or you know each other somehow from previous companies, or you are just friends privately. So super important is having the reporting time and reporting channel. So having that goal set up is the first thing. But the second thing is like having separated meetings, not to discuss everything all the time, just to have these time frames and really described the responsibilities. So not doing everything together, because that's very common. That if we are, I'm also having the company with my friend. We know each other from 18 years, and like we are having even separated channels of communication. So we are using Messenger for private communication, and we are using Slack for the company one.
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah, we are also having like, separated one-on-one meetings, because my co-founder is reporting to me, but we don't want to discuss it like all the time, all the problems, because you are having that feeling that these problems are countless and you are all the time with it. So there is a moment like 1 hour, 2 hours a week when you are just solving them, and that's it. So you are treating them, no matter who is reporting to whom, but still having that line of reporting, and having that goals and setting them delivered or not, saying that out loud like every month or every quarter. So like having this separated channels and having that separated ways of communication. And also the third aspect, very often at the very early stage, we are having that problem that someone is giving more time or effort or energy than others. And there's like the first source of frustration.
Yeah.
So like, I was investing more money when we started, or I'm working for 20 hours a day and you are not. Okay, but you know that I have a small child. Okay, should I care because you are my friend? But I don't want to care because it's my time I put and you don't, right? End of the day. So that set of behaviors again. So like, what is acceptable for us as friends and what is acceptable for us
as business partners.
As business partners,
Yeah.
right? So very often there is a thing like I'm also a friend of my leaders working for me. Some of them I knew before, but it's more common that we become friends when we are working together, and it is about boundaries, and it is about having that borders, that saying like, okay, saying out loud to me like that, it's too much. Like, please don't.
Yeah.
And like setting these boundaries, and my leaders are not angry with me, because they understand that for organization we need to keep some distance.
Yeah.
If we are in a private situation, that's fine. But if we are talking about organizational things, we need to stop the discussion sometimes, because I need to make the final decision, because like I'm the final responsible person, for example. It's not always like that, but this rules set also when it comes to behavior, and how much we give to the company and how much we can trust each other. But still, it's not about trust. It's about winning the business. So I love you. I trust you. You are my friend. You are my partner, or, my husband, wife, whatever.
Yeah.
But still, like at work, you are reporting to me, and we are having this Wednesday update, right?
You heard it here first. Róża Szafranek, many thanks for coming on the Holistic Podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure.
A pleasure for me too. Thanks. And that wraps up this edition of Holistic Podcasts. You can find more information in the show notes to this podcast, and do remember to like, share, and subscribe for more from us here at Holistic News. From me, John Beecham, thanks for listening, and do join me again next time. Bye-bye.